Before we begin, take a deep breath. Let the weight of the day drift quietly to the side. Tonight, you are not required to solve any puzzles or hold on to any tension. All you need to do is listen. Gently, calmly, we'll wander into the past, into a mystery that has whispered across the internet for years, not to awaken anxiety, but to observe from a distance. As if reading a slow-turning book by the light of the moon. This is the story of Elisa Lam. Not a horror story, not a spectacle, but a quiet story about a young woman, a lonely city, and a handful of lingering questions. There are no loud moments here, just soft shadows, empty hallways, and unanswered thoughts. You are safe. The past is the past, and the world outside your window is still and quiet. Imagine yourself in Los Angeles in late January of 2013. The air is dry and slightly warm, unseasonably so. Palm trees sway gently along the edge of the sidewalks, their shadows stretching long under the soft sun. Downtown is alive, but beneath its surface is an echo of something older, something forgotten. Buildings lean into each other with quiet familiarity. The streets buzz, not with energy, but with the weight of stories that came before. Elisa Lam had just arrived. She was 21 years old, a Canadian student, curious, thoughtful, sometimes quiet, sometimes poetic, often both. Her Tumblr posts, scattered across the internet like pages from a diary, paint a portrait of someone deeply introspective. She loved books. She loved writing. She struggled too, with feelings she sometimes couldn't explain, and with the dull, gray fog of mental illness that settled over her from time to time like a morning mist. Still, she chose to travel alone. A solo trip along the California coast. A break, an escape, a journey not unlike this one we're taking now, quiet, gentle, hopeful. She arrived at the Cecil Hotel located on South Main Street. If you didn't know its reputation, you'd think little of it. An old building with a tall frame and faded red signage, tucked in between shops and apartment buildings. It had once held a different kind of prestige. In the 1920s, it was elegant. But decades passed and the paint began to chip. The neighborhood changed. The hotel changed with it. It became cheaper, quieter, and eventually known for something else entirely. But Elisa didn't seem to mind. She checked in like anyone else. She took pictures of the city. She visited bookshops, posted updates from her phone. Her voice through the internet was calm, curious, searching. In the beginning, everything felt normal. Her parents back in Vancouver had encouraged her trip but asked her to check in daily. She did, until one day, she didn't. That's where the stillness begins, the kind that settles into a story slowly, like dusk folding over a city. We'll stay with her in that moment, before the headlines, before the speculation. Just Elisa, a girl in a strange city, drifting gently through downtown Los Angeles, unaware that her story would be retold again and again. But for now, there is only quiet. There is only her. And as the elevator doors close and the city exhales below, we move to the next part of the story. There is something peculiar about hotels. They are places of transit where people pass through one another's stories like shadows crossing a screen. Each door holds a different life. Each hallway carries a different silence. And somewhere, in the middle of it all, Elisa Lam began to disappear. It started slowly, almost imperceptibly. The Cecil Hotel staff noticed that Elisa, who had been staying in a shared room, was moved to her own private space. Other guests had reportedly complained about her behavior. She was said to be acting strangely, locking herself in the bathroom for extended periods, speaking to no one, laughing softly, alone, or sometimes not emerging at all. But to those familiar with the complexities of mental health, this may not seem so strange. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. She was taking prescribed medications. She was young, far from home, alone in a city where people don't stop moving. And yet, something in the rhythm of her behavior seemed to shift. One day, she stopped calling her parents. No message, no update, just absence. Her family, understandably concerned, contacted the Los Angeles Police Department. Officers arrived at the Cecil, searching her room. They found her belongings, clothes, prescriptions, a book. Nothing obviously wrong. Nothing out of place, just the unmistakable imprint of someone who had left, and perhaps expected to return. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no forced entry. The police began their investigation quietly at first. Flyers went up. Hotel guests were questioned. A timeline began to form, hazy, incomplete, but enough to suggest she had simply vanished. And then something changed. Days later, the LAPD released a piece of security footage that would define this case in the public's imagination. A single video, nearly 4 minutes long, taken from an elevator inside the Cecil Hotel. It is a strange, slow video. The elevator door slides open. Elisa enters. She presses several buttons. The door does not close. She hesitates, steps backward, peers into the hallway, hides in the corner, steps out, steps back in. Her movements are erratic, yet oddly precise. Her hands make shapes in the air, almost ritualistic. Her face flickers in and out of view. The door remains open far longer than seems normal. And then, she disappears from the frame. The door closes, reopens, closes again. No one else appears. The footage, with its grainy quality and soft shadows, became viral. Not for what it revealed, but for what it left behind. The strange rhythm, the absence of logic, the sense that something was not quite right and yet not clearly wrong. People around the world began to speculate. Was she playing a game? Was someone just out of view? Was this a side effect of her medication? A hallucination, a fear, a breakdown, a haunting? But the footage gave no answers. Just movements in silence. Soft footsteps in an empty hallway. A girl standing in a box of light and shadow, and then gone. The investigation deepened. Hotel staff, guests, local residents, all questioned. But still, no trace. The days passed, and up above, on the roof of the Cecil Hotel, 4 water tanks stood quietly in place, unwatched, untouched, supplying water to dozens of rooms. It would be another 2 weeks before anyone thought to look inside them. And when they did, the story would change again, but not in the way you might think. Let us go there now, gently, carefully. We will climb the quiet stairs, open the rusted door, and approach the rooftop under soft gray skies. The rooftop of the Cecil Hotel was not meant to be explored. Its access was restricted, at least in theory. A locked door, a silent alarm, a stairwell not often used. But buildings age, and locks lose meaning over time. The rooftop became, like much of the hotel, a space caught between function and neglect. Quiet. Forgotten. It was February 19th, 2013. The hotel had received a number of complaints. Guests mentioned strange tasting water, weak water pressure, an odd discoloration, a faint smell. Maintenance was dispatched to investigate. And so, a hotel worker climbed the stairwell, stepped into the cool rooftop air, and approached the 4 large cylindrical water tanks, metal, matte, each standing silently like sentinels. He opened one of the lids. Inside, floating just beneath the surface of the water, was the body of Elisa Lam. She was unclothed. Her belongings, her clothes and watch, were found nearby in the tank. There were no clear injuries, no marks, no bruises of violence, no sign of a struggle. The tank itself had no interior ladder. The lid was said to be heavy. And yet, somehow, she was there. The questions multiplied, gently but persistently, like ripples in still water. The coroner's report, released later, listed her cause of death as accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder cited as a contributing factor. There were no drugs in her system, only the medications she had been prescribed. No alcohol, no toxins, no signs of assault, just stillness. The police explained the circumstances in practical terms. Perhaps she had climbed the fire escape. Perhaps she had opened the tank and fallen in. Perhaps her mind, in a moment of confusion or fear, had led her there. But perhaps is not a comfortable word. And as her story began to circulate, retold in hushed tones across blogs, podcasts, forums, it became more than a case. It became a canvas. People painted it with theories. A game gone wrong. A copycat of old legends. A cover-up. A haunting. A glitch. But here, in this telling, we won't rush to fill the silence. Instead, we sit with it. We observe the rooftop, the quiet concrete, the soft hum of the city far below. We imagine the metal of the tank, cool to the touch, the air heavy with morning fog, the sound of water echoing against steel, a place not meant for anyone, a moment that slipped outside the edges of reason. Elisa's parents, devastated, returned to Vancouver. Her death to them was not a story. It was a loss, a stillness that could not be explained away by theories or headlines. Their daughter was gone. The Cecil Hotel remained open for a time. But the building changed again. It became quieter, a strange, looming presence in downtown Los Angeles. Tourists passed by, some stopped, others walked quickly. The elevator where Elisa was last seen became a kind of shrine, lit by the glow of curious phones and whispered fascination. But the mystery remained unsolved. Or perhaps it was never a mystery at all, only a series of moments that slipped just slightly out of sequence. A young woman traveling alone, a city too big, a hotel too forgotten, a rooftop too easy to reach, and water, holding silence. But mysteries do not end when answers are given. They end when the questions lose their urgency, when the past becomes still. Time is quiet when it passes. You don't often feel its steps until you stop to look behind you. The Cecil Hotel has stood for nearly a century, its bones absorbing more stories than could ever be told. Some were loud, some were tragic. And some, like Elisa's, were wrapped in quiet contradiction. Simple on the surface, but impossible to settle. In the years following Elisa Lam's death, her story continued to ripple outward. Not because of shock or scandal, but because of stillness. The elevator footage still floats through the internet. You can find it easily. You might have seen it once, but the meaning of it changes depending on the eyes watching. She posted poetry. She loved fashion. She wanted to live. She wanted to connect. And that may be the most enduring part of her story. The contrast between how ordinary her hopes were and how extraordinary her ending seemed. In her blog posts, Elisa often described the world around her in small, vivid ways. The smell of rain on a sidewalk, the color of a stranger's coat, the feeling of watching people without being seen. These weren't dramatic declarations, just observations. As if she were documenting life not for others, but to keep track of her own place in it. And perhaps in a way, we all do that. We mark time with moments, we look for patterns. We ask questions, not always to solve them, but simply to hold the shape of the unknown. The Cecil Hotel was eventually shut down for renovations. Some say it's been rebranded. Others say it remains vacant, paused in time. But the building, whatever name it wears, will always echo with the stories it held. Elisa's case inspired documentaries, internet investigations, songs, podcasts. And yet, it is not a performance. It is a life. And like all lives, it resists being fully understood. As we drift into silence. So now you know the story. Not the viral version, not the newsreel, but the quiet one. The version told slowly, gently, like turning pages late at night while the city sleeps outside your window. A girl took a trip. She stayed in a hotel. She vanished and was found. The spaces in between remain open. And that is all right. Because not all stories were made to be solved. Some were made to be witnessed, gently, without urgency. So rest easy now. Let your thoughts drift, like soft light down an empty hallway. There's nothing you need to hold on to. The story will still be here when you wake. Good night. This has been Midnight Archive, a true crime mystery, softly told.